Welcome to the Wealth Forge. The architecture of a dollar, understanding the creation, growth, control, protection, and deployment of money. Written for the Wealth Forge audiobook series. Money is more than currency. It is trust, stored labor, purchasing power, and opportunity. Most people spend their lives earning money without ever understanding how money truly works. This audiobook was created to change that. Through the pages ahead, you will discover the hidden framework behind every dollar that enters your life and learn how to transform money from a tool of survival into a tool of freedom. The Wealth Forge principle: every dollar has a job, potential, and purpose. Introduction: Becoming the Architect. Take a moment and imagine a single dollar. Not a stack of them, not a million of them, just one. A single dollar bill. You've seen one 1,000 times. You've spent them without thinking. You've earned them, saved them, even lost them, or given them away. Yet have you ever stopped and considered a strange reality? Nearly every major decision in your life is influenced by money. Where you live, how you work, the opportunities available to your family, the stress you carry, the freedom you experience, and the dreams you pursue. Money touches nearly every corner of modern life, and yet most people spend decades earning it without ever understanding it. That brings us to a simple question. A question most people never ask. What is a dollar? Not what it can buy. Not how many you have. Not how quickly you can earn another one. But what is it really? At first, the answer seems obvious. A dollar is money. But if that were the whole story, financial success would be easy. Everyone uses money. Everyone earns money. And everyone spends money. Yet some people seem to build wealth almost effortlessly, while others spend a lifetime chasing it. Why? Why can two people earn the same income and arrive at completely different destinations? Why do some people create lasting wealth while others remain trapped in a cycle of earning and spending? Why do some dollars multiply while others disappear? The answer lies in understanding something most people never see. Money has an architecture, an underlying structure, a framework, a set of principles operating beneath every financial decision we make. And just like an architect must understand the blueprint before constructing a building, anyone seeking financial freedom must understand the blueprint behind money. Because wealth is not built by accident. It is built by understanding. Every skyscraper begins with a design. Every bridge begins with a plan. Every great structure begins with an understanding of how the pieces fit together. Money is no different. What if I told you that every dollar entering your life is beginning a journey? A journey that will ultimately determine whether it disappears, survives, grows, or multiplies. A journey influenced by forces you cannot see. Inflation, interest rates, technology, human behavior, opportunity, time, and perhaps most importantly, your decisions. The truth is that most people spend years working for money without ever fully understanding how money works. They learn how to earn, but not how to direct. They learn how to spend, but not to deploy. They learn how to survive, but not how to build. As a result, money often feels mysterious, difficult, and even frustrating, always just slightly out of reach. Yet wealth itself is not mysterious. The principles have remained remarkably consistent for generations. The tools may change, The technology may evolve, the economy may transform, but the foundational principles remain the same. A dollar still follows instructions. A dollar still responds to direction. A dollar still grows when treated correctly. And a dollar still disappears when neglected. This audiobook is not about getting rich overnight. It is not about secret investments. It is not about financial shortcuts, because shortcuts rarely create lasting wealth. Instead, this audiobook is about understanding the architecture itself, the hidden framework behind earning, growing, controlling, protecting, and deploying money. By the end of this journey, you will never look at a dollar the same way again. You'll begin to see opportunities where you once saw expenses. You'll begin to recognize the invisible forces influencing your financial life. You'll begin to understand why some decisions create freedom, while others create limitations. And perhaps most importantly, you'll begin seeing how every dollar can become a tool for building the life you truly want. Because that is the real purpose of money. Not accumulation, not status, and not comparison. Money is a tool, and not just any tool. A tool capable of creating security, creating options, creating opportunity, and a tool capable of creating freedom. But like any tool, its effectiveness depends on the person using it. And that is why this journey matters. Whether you are struggling financially, building momentum, growing a business, planning for retirement, or simply trying to become more intentional with your money, the principles you're about to learn apply equally. Because money does not care where you start. Money responds to behavior, discipline, knowledge, and it responds to action. This is not a journey about becoming someone else. It is a journey about becoming more aware, more intentional, more capable, and more empowered. You do not need a finance degree or a large income. You do not need perfect timing. You simply need curiosity, the willingness to think differently, to ask better questions, and the willingness to take responsibility for the dollars flowing through your life. Because every dollar has a story. Every dollar has a destination. And every dollar has potential. The question is what that potential will become. Will it be consumed? Or will it be protected? Will it be invested and potentially be multiplied? Will it become freedom? Or will it quietly disappear without ever reaching its full purpose? That decision is rarely made by the dollar. It is made by the architect. And by listening to this audiobook, you have already taken the first step toward becoming one. But there is another reason this journey matters right now. We are living through one of the most fascinating economic periods in human history. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries. Technology is creating opportunities that did not exist a decade ago. Information moves around the world in seconds. A single individual can build a business from a laptop. An investor can own companies across the globe. A creator can reach millions of people from a spare bedroom. At the same time, inflation continues to challenge households. Debt levels continue to rise. Economic uncertainty remains a constant reality. The gap between those who understand money and those who merely use money is growing wider. That is why financial education matters. Not because money is the most important thing in life, but because money touches nearly every important thing in life. The opportunities you pursue, the choices available to your family, the freedom you experience, and the impact you are able to create. The person who understands money gains more than financial knowledge. They gain leverage. They gain confidence. They gain the ability to make decisions from a position of strength rather than necessity. And in a rapidly changing world, that may be one of the most valuable skills a person can develop. So let's begin. Let's explore the hidden structure behind money. Let's uncover the forces shaping every financial decision. Let's discover the power hidden inside a single dollar. And let's learn how to forge wealth, one decision at a time. Welcome to the Wealth Forge. Welcome to the architecture of a dollar. Chapter 1. The birth of a dollar. Understanding what money really is. Before you can master money, you have to understand what money actually is. Most people never do. They spend their lives earning dollars, spending or saving them, worrying about them, chasing them, and measuring success by them. But very few ever stop and ask a deeper question. What is a dollar? Not what can it buy, not how much of it do you have, but what is it really? Because once you understand what a dollar is, you begin to see money differently. You stop seeing it as something that simply comes in and goes out. You start seeing it as a tool, a system, a form of stored energy. A dollar is not just paper. It is not just a number on a screen. It is a claim. A claim on goods or services, or a claim on someone else's time, labor, skill, or production. When you hold a dollar, you are holding access. Access to food or transportation. Access to shelter or opportunity. And access to choices. And that is why money matters. Not because money itself is the goal, but because money expands what a person is able to do. It gives options. It creates mobility. It can reduce pressure. It can create freedom. It can build businesses, feed families, fund missions, support communities, and open doors that would otherwise remain closed. But money was not always this way. Before dollars, before banks, before credit cards, before digital payments, human beings still had needs. People needed food. They needed tools. They needed shelter. They needed clothing. And they needed help from one another. The earliest economies were built on direct trade. A farmer might trade grain for a pair of shoes. A hunter might trade meat for a tool. A carpenter might trade furniture for livestock. This system worked, but only in simple situations. The problem was that both people had to want exactly what the other person had at the exact same time. If the farmer needed shoes, he had to find a shoemaker who wanted grain. If the shoemaker did not need grain, no trade happened. The farmer still needed shoes. The shoemaker still had shoes. But the exchange failed because there was no common bridge between them. That was the limitation of barter. It slowed everything down, made trade difficult, and it limited growth. It kept opportunity trapped inside small circles. So over time, societies began using certain objects as common mediums of exchange. Different civilizations used different things, such as salt, shells, cattle, copper, silver, and gold. These things became money because enough people agreed they had value. That agreement changed everything. Now the farmer did not need to find a shoemaker who wanted grain. The farmer could sell grain for money, then use that money to buy shoes. Money became a bridge. It connected one person's labor to another person's product. It allowed value to move more freely. It allowed people to specialize. One person could become proficient at farming. Another could become an excellent builder. And yet, another could become great at making tools. And money allowed all of them to exchange value without needing a perfect one-for-one trade. This is one of the most important ideas in economics. Money makes civilization scalable. Without money, trade stays slow. With money, trade accelerates. And when trade accelerates, economies grow. But even gold and silver had problems. They were heavy. They were hard to transport. They could be stolen. They could be difficult to divide into exact amounts. And as economies expanded, people needed something easier. That is where paper money began to emerge. At first, paper money often represented a claim on something physical. A person could deposit gold or silver with a trusted institution and receive a paper note showing ownership. That note could then be exchanged. It was easier to carry, easier to divide, and easier to move. And eventually, people became comfortable trading the paper itself. They trusted the note, the institution behind it, and they trusted that someone else would accept it later. That trust is the foundation of money, and it is still the foundation today. The modern US dollar is what is called fiat currency. Fiat money is not backed by gold in the way many people imagine. It is backed by law, government authority, economic productivity, taxation, and most importantly, trust. The dollar has value because people accept it. Businesses, banks, governments, workers, and investors accept it. Even other nations accept it. Every time you use a dollar, you are participating in one of the largest trust systems in human history. That may sound fragile at first, but think about how much of life works this way. A deed to a house is valuable because a legal system recognizes ownership. A contract is valuable because people agree to honor its terms. And a college degree is valuable because institutions, employers, and society recognize what it represents. A dollar works the same way. Its value does not come from the paper. Its value comes from the system behind it. And in today's economy, most dollars are not paper at all. Most money exists digitally. When your paycheck hits your bank account, a truck full of cash does not arrive at the bank. Numbers change in a ledger. When you swipe a card, tap a phone, send a transfer, or pay a bill online, physical money usually does not move. Information moves, records update, and balances change. In the modern world, money has become data. This is a major shift. For most of history, money was something you could touch. Today, money is something you can access. It lives in bank accounts, brokerage accounts, payment apps, credit systems, and digital platforms. This makes money faster than ever before. It can move across the country in seconds and across the world in minutes. It can be invested with a few taps. It can be borrowed instantly. And it can even be spent without ever seeing it leave your hand. That speed creates opportunity, but it also creates danger. Because when money becomes invisible, it becomes easier to lose control of it. A person can overspend without feeling the physical weight of the decision. Debt can accumulate quietly. Subscriptions can drain accounts month after month. Inflation can weaken purchasing power without making a sound. This is why understanding the dollar matters more now than ever. The modern economy is fast, digital, global, highly connected, and increasingly shaped by technology. A person with knowledge, discipline, and a smartphone has more financial tools available today than many business owners had a generation ago. You can start a business online. You can learn valuable skills for free or at low cost. You can invest automatically. You can reach customers around the world. You can use artificial intelligence to create, research, organize, market, and build faster than ever before. But the same tools that create opportunity can also create distraction. The same phone that can help you build wealth can also help you spend money all day long. That is why the first step is not earning more. The first step is seeing clearly. So where do dollars actually come from? In the simplest sense, dollars enter the economy through a combination of government policy, central banking, commercial banking, credit creation, business activity, and consumer exchange. At the center of the US monetary system is the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States. It does not control every dollar in a simple, direct way, but it has powerful influence over the financial system. One of its most important tools is interest rates. When interest rates are low, borrowing becomes easier. Businesses may expand. Consumers may buy homes, vehicles, and other major purchases. Investors may take more risk. Money tends to move more freely. When interest rates are high, borrowing becomes more expensive. Business expansion may slow. Home buying may cool. Debt payments become heavier. Investors often become more cautious. Money tends to tighten. This is why interest rates matter so much. They influence the cost of money. And when the cost of money changes, behavior changes. Businesses, consumers, banks, and investors all behave differently. The entire economy responds. This is one reason a dollar is never just a dollar. A dollar exists inside a larger environment. A dollar held during low inflation behaves differently than one held during high inflation. A dollar invested wisely behaves differently than a dollar sitting idle. A dollar used to buy an asset behaves differently than a dollar used to buy a liability. And a dollar borrowed at 3% behaves drastically different than a dollar borrowed at 24%. The environment around money changes what money can do. And this is where many people get trapped. They think earning dollars is the whole game. It is not. Earning money matters. But understanding money matters more. Because if you do not understand money, you can earn it and still lose it. You can work hard and still fall behind. You can make more and still feel broke. You can increase your income and still have no control. That is not because people are lazy. Many people work incredibly hard. The issue is that they were never taught the architecture. They were taught to get a job, to pay bills, and be responsible. But they were not always taught how money is created, how it moves, how it loses value, how it grows, how it is protected, or how it can be deployed. The wealthy tend to study these things. They study cash flow, assets. They even study debt. They also study markets, leverage, and human behavior. They understand that money is not only earned through labor. Money can also be directed through systems. And that is the beginning of financial intelligence. Not greed, not obsession, not worshipping money, but understanding the tool clearly enough to use it wisely. Because money is a tool. Like fire, it can build or destroy. Like a hammer, it can construct or damage. Like a seed, it can be eaten today or planted for tomorrow. The same dollar can produce very different outcomes depending on the hands that control it. One person spends $1 and it disappears. Another person saves $1 and creates stability. Another person invests $1 and plants a seed. Another person leverages $1 and builds an engine. The dollar did not change. The decision changed. That is the heart of the wealth forge. Every dollar has potential and every dollar has direction. Every dollar has a job, whether you assign that job intentionally or not. If you do not tell your money where to go, the world will gladly decide for you. Advertising, your own impulses, interest rates, unforeseen emergencies, and inflation will all decide. But when you understand money, you begin to take command. You stop asking only, how much did I make? You start asking better questions. Where did it go? What did it produce? Did it make me stronger? Did it buy freedom? Or just temporary comfort? Did it create future options? Did it move me closer to ownership? These are the questions that change a person's financial life. Because wealth is not only about income. Wealth is about control. Control over your time. Control over your choices. Control over your opportunities. Control over the direction of your life. And that control begins with understanding the birth of a dollar. A dollar is born from trust. It moves through exchange. It is shaped by policy. It is multiplied by banking. It is weakened by inflation. It is strengthened by productive use. And it becomes powerful when it is directed by a person who understands what it is. So from this point forward, do not look at a dollar as something small. Do not treat it as meaningless. Do not dismiss it because it is only one. A single dollar is a unit of economic energy. It carries the history of human trade. It carries the power of trust. It carries the evidence of your labor, and it carries the possibility of future growth. The person who wastes $1 carelessly often wastes many. The person who learns to direct $1 wisely can learn to direct thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, then more. That is how financial mastery begins. Not with millions, not with luck, not with a perfect economy, but with understanding, with awareness, with respect for the tool. Because the dollar is more than currency. It is architecture. It has a foundation. It has movement, pressure points, and weak spots. It has unlimited power. And if you want to build wealth, you must learn how that architecture works. This chapter is the foundation. Now we know where the dollar comes from. We know that money began as a solution to the limitations of barter. We know that currency became a bridge between labor and value. We know that modern dollars are built on trust, law, productivity, banking, and digital systems. And we know that money today moves faster than at any point in history. But there is another truth we need to face. Once a dollar is born, it does not stay the same. Its value changes. Its purchasing power changes. The economy around it changes. And sometimes, without you noticing, the dollar in your hand becomes weaker. That brings us to the next part of the architecture. The hidden forces that shape every dollar you own. Inflation, purchasing power, interest rates, debt, asset prices, and the silent pressure that can make a person feel like they are working harder while falling further behind. Because understanding how a dollar is born is only the beginning. Next, we need to understand what happens to that dollar once the world starts pushing against it. Chapter 2. The invisible forces. Why your dollar doesn't stay the same. Imagine finding a $100 bill in a drawer. It's crisp, untouched, and it's been sitting there for 10 years. Most people would think that $100 is exactly what it was a decade ago. After all, it still says $100. It hasn't changed. The paper looks the same. The number is the same. But economically, it is not the same dollar. In reality, that $100 bill has been quietly changing every single day. Not because the bill changed, but because the world around it did. And that introduces one of the most important concepts in wealth building. Money has two values, its face value and its purchasing power. Face value is what is printed on the currency. Purchasing power is what that currency can actually buy. The face value may stay the same. The purchasing power, however, rarely does. This is why understanding money requires more than understanding dollars. You must understand the forces acting upon those dollars. Because once a dollar enters the economy, it enters a battlefield of inflation, interest rates, debt, productivity, government policy, consumer behavior, global markets, and technological change. Every dollar you earn is constantly being pushed and pulled by forces most people never think about. Yet, those forces affect nearly every financial outcome in their lives. Let's begin with the most important one: inflation. Most people think inflation means prices are going up. That's only partially true. Inflation is really the decline of purchasing power. The rising prices are simply the symptom. Imagine a loaf of bread costs $2. A few years later, that same loaf costs $3. Did the bread become 50% better? Probably not. What changed was the value of the money used to purchase it. The dollar became weaker relative to the goods being purchased. This is why inflation is often called the silent tax. Nobody sends you a bill. Nobody knocks on your door. Nobody asks for permission. Yet year after year, inflation quietly reduces what your money can buy. This becomes especially dangerous when wages fail to grow at the same pace. A person may receive raises. They may earn more money than they did 5 years ago, yet still feel financially stressed. Why? Because their purchasing power may not have increased. They are earning more dollars, but each dollar accomplishes less. This is one of the defining financial realities of modern life. Many people aren't just imagining the pressure they feel. Housing costs have risen along with food costs, insurance rates, healthcare costs, and the cost of education. Energy costs constantly fluctuate, and childcare costs have continued climbing year over year. At the same time, many households are trying to navigate an economy changing faster than any previous generation experienced. Technology is accelerating. Artificial intelligence is transforming industries. Remote work is reshaping entire labor markets. Global competition has increased. Entire career paths can evolve in a matter of years. The financial landscape is moving quickly, and that means standing still is no longer a neutral position. A generation ago, a person might place money in a savings account and feel reasonably confident. Today, a savings account earning 1% while inflation runs higher effectively loses purchasing power over time. The money appears safe, but its buying power is shrinking. This is one of the first major mindset shifts wealthy people make. They stop measuring wealth only by dollars accumulated. They begin measuring wealth by purchasing power preserved. $1 million sounds impressive, but $1 million in one era does not buy what $1 million bought in another. The number matters, but the buying power matters more. This is why successful investors often focus on owning productive assets. Assets have the ability to adapt. A strong business can raise prices. A quality piece of real estate may appreciate. A productive company can grow revenue. An investment portfolio can compound. Cash is important, but cash alone often struggles to outrun inflation over long periods. And inflation is only one force affecting your dollar. Interest rates play another enormous role. Think of interest rates as the price of money. When money is cheap to borrow, economic activity often accelerates. Businesses expand, consumers spend more, investors become optimistic, and home purchases increase. When money becomes expensive to borrow, behavior changes. Expansion slows. Purchases become more selective. Debt becomes heavier, and growth becomes harder. You may not notice interest rates every day, but they influence mortgage payments, car loans, business loans, credit card balances, investment decisions, housing affordability, and even the stock market. The cost of money shapes the behavior of nearly every participant in the economy. Then there is debt. Debt is one of the most misunderstood financial tools in existence. Some debt can create wealth, while other debt can completely destroy it. The difference lies in what the debt produces. A loan used to acquire a productive asset may generate future income, while a loan used for consumption may create future obligations without future returns. The challenge is that modern society makes consumption incredibly easy. A few taps on a screen, a swipe of a card, a financing offer, an instant approval. Convenience has never been greater. But convenience can disguise cost. Every dollar spent today is a dollar unavailable for future opportunity. This is where opportunity cost enters the conversation. Opportunity cost is the value of what you give up when making a decision. Imagine spending $100. The question isn't simply whether the purchase was worth $100. The deeper question is, what else could that $100 have become? Could it have purchased a skill? Could it have started an investment? Could it have reduced debt? Could it have generated future income? Every dollar has alternatives. Every financial decision closes one door and opens another. This doesn't mean people should never enjoy life. Far from it. Money is meant to serve life, not the other way around. The goal is awareness. To understand that every dollar carries potential energy, and once that energy is deployed, its future changes. Some dollars disappear, some multiply, some protect, some create, and some quietly work for decades. The decision often determines the outcome. Now let's talk about another force reshaping money today. Technology. Never before in history has the average person had access to so much economic leverage. A smartphone now connects individuals to global markets. Education, business opportunities, investment platforms, artificial intelligence, content creation, e-commerce, consulting, or digital products. The barriers that once required large amounts of capital have fallen dramatically. A person can launch a business from a spare bedroom, build an audience from a phone, sell products worldwide, or create systems that generate income while they sleep. Technology has changed the potential productivity of every dollar. This is why the modern economy rewards adaptability. Skills, learning, and financial literacy now all matter more than ever. Because while inflation may weaken a dollar, knowledge can strengthen what that dollar becomes. And perhaps that is the most encouraging reality of all. You cannot personally control inflation, interest rates, government policy, or global markets, but you can control how you respond. You can increase your skills, your knowledge, your value, and you can improve your decisions. You can become more intentional with every dollar that enters your life. That is where financial power begins. Not in predicting the future, but in preparing for it. Not in controlling the economy, but in controlling your actions within it. Because the truth is that every dollar you earn enters an environment filled with invisible forces. Some forces strengthen it, some weaken it, some multiply it, while some erode it. The people who understand these forces gain an advantage. They stop reacting emotionally and begin thinking strategically. They stop asking only how much money they make, but begin asking what their money is becoming. And that question changes everything. Because once you understand the forces acting on your money, you begin to see a deeper truth. A dollar is not static. A dollar is dynamic. It is constantly moving and constantly changing, constantly interacting with the world around it. And if a dollar is dynamic, then it possesses something remarkable: potential. Potential to become more than it is today. Potential to create future opportunities. Potential to grow, to work, and to multiply. Which leads us directly to the next chapter. Because once we understand where a dollar comes from and the forces acting upon it, we can finally explore the most exciting part of the architecture. The power contained inside a single dollar. The hidden potential that separates spending from investing, consumption from ownership, temporary satisfaction from lasting wealth. Because every dollar carries energy. The question is whether that energy will be consumed or compounded. Chapter 3. The power inside $1. Every dollar has a job. Imagine holding a single dollar in your hand. Just one. Most people wouldn't think much about it. After all, it's only a dollar. It won't buy much. It won't change your life. It won't make you wealthy. So they spend it without a second thought. Then they spend another, and another, and another. Days become months. Months become years. Years become decades. Eventually, thousands of dollars have passed through their hands, and they wonder why wealth always seems to remain just out of reach. The truth is that wealth is rarely built through a few massive decisions. More often, it is built through thousands of small decisions repeated consistently over time. And those decisions begin with how we think about a single dollar. Because a dollar is not just currency. A dollar is potential. A dollar is choice. A dollar is energy waiting for direction. In the previous chapters, we learned where money comes from and the invisible forces that shape it. Now we arrive at a powerful question. What can a dollar actually do? The answer is simple. A dollar can only do one of four things. It can be spent, saved, invested, or it can be leveraged. Every dollar that enters your life eventually finds one of those destinations. Understanding these four paths is one of the most important lessons in wealth building. Let's start with the most common destination, spending. There is nothing inherently wrong with spending money. Money is meant to improve life. It allows us to eat, travel, celebrate, create memories, support our families, and enjoy experiences. The goal is not to eliminate spending. The goal is to become intentional about it. Because spending creates a unique outcome. Once a dollar is spent, its journey with you is usually over. You exchange it for a product, a service, or an experience. And in return, the dollar leaves your control. The value received may be worthwhile. But the dollar itself stops working for you. Think about a restaurant meal. You spend $100. You enjoy the experience, the food, and the conversation. There is value there. But once the meal is over, the money is gone. The experience remains. The dollar does not. Now compare that to another path. Saving. Saving gives a dollar a different job. Instead of leaving immediately, the dollar remains available. It becomes protection, a buffer, a layer of security between you and life's uncertainties. An emergency fund is not exciting. It doesn't create headlines. It doesn't generate social media posts. But it creates something incredibly valuable. Peace of mind. When unexpected expenses appear, savings provide options. When opportunities arise, savings provide flexibility. When challenges emerge, savings provide resilience. A saved dollar creates stability. And stability is often the foundation upon which wealth is built. But there is a limitation. As we discussed in the previous chapter, inflation slowly reduces purchasing power. A dollar saved indefinitely may remain safe, but it may not remain strong. This leads us to the third path. Investing. Investing is where a dollar begins to work. Imagine hiring an employee. You wouldn't hire that employee and ask them to sit in a chair all day, doing nothing. You would expect them to produce value. to contribute, and to work. An invested dollar does the same thing. It becomes a worker. It leaves your hands temporarily in an effort to return with companions. $1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, and 4 becomes 8. Not overnight, not magically, but through productive activity. When you buy shares of a business, invest in real estate, or acquire productive assets, your dollar goes to work. The goal is no longer preservation. The goal becomes multiplication. This is where many people begin to see wealth differently. They stop measuring success only by income. They begin measuring success by the number of dollars working on their behalf. Because there are only so many hours in a day. There are only so many hours you can personally work. But invested dollars can continue working regardless of whether you're awake, asleep, on vacation, or spending time with family. That is one of the defining characteristics of wealth. Assets continue producing even when labor stops. And then we arrive at the fourth path. Leverage. Leverage is one of the most powerful and misunderstood forces in finance. At its core, leverage means using resources to amplify results. Businesses, investors, entrepreneurs, and technology companies all use leverage. Today, leverage comes in many forms. Aside from capital, employees, systems, software, and artificial intelligence are all forms of leverage. A person working alone can only accomplish so much. A person using systems can accomplish exponentially more. Consider a business owner. They may invest $1 into advertising and generate $3 in revenue. That dollar has now been leveraged. Consider an entrepreneur who uses technology to serve thousands of customers instead of just 10. That use of technology becomes leverage as well. Consider an investor who acquires an asset producing cash flow. That asset becomes leverage too. Leverage allows a dollar to produce outcomes larger than itself. Used wisely, leverage accelerates wealth creation, but used recklessly, leverage accelerates destruction. That is why understanding leverage matters. It is neither good nor bad. It is simply powerful. And power requires discipline. Now let's explore another concept that separates wealthy thinkers from everyone else. Opportunity cost. Every financial decision carries an invisible price. Most people only see the visible price. The purchase itself, the amount spent, and the number on the receipt. Wealth builders see something else. They see what the money could have become. Imagine a person spends $1,000 on an impulse purchase. The cost is not merely $1,000. The true cost includes everything that $1,000 could have produced over time. Invested wisely, that money may have grown. Used to learn a valuable skill. It may have increased future income. Used to reduce debt. It may have lowered future expenses. Every spending decision carries alternative futures. This doesn't mean every purchase should be analyzed endlessly. It just means awareness matters. The wealthy often think differently because they evaluate purchases through the lens of future possibilities. They don't simply ask, "What does this cost?" They ask, "What is this preventing me from doing?" That question changes behavior. And behavior changes outcomes. This brings us to one of the most important distinctions in the entire audiobook. Consumption versus ownership. Modern society encourages consumption constantly. Advertisements compete for attention every minute of every day. Social media creates comparison. Marketing creates desire. Technology creates convenience. The message is almost always the same. Buy more, upgrade more, spend more, and consume more. Yet wealth is typically built through ownership. Ownership of businesses, assets, intellectual property, or investments. Ownership creates participation. When you own productive assets, you benefit from growth. You benefit from profits, appreciation, or cash flow. Consumption often feels rewarding immediately, while ownership often feels rewarding eventually. The challenge is that human beings naturally favor immediate rewards. We want the benefit now. The successful investor learns to balance both worlds. To enjoy life today while building tomorrow. To consume intentionally while owning consistently. This is where financial maturity begins to emerge. Not through deprivation or obsession, but through balance. Because the objective is not to become rich and miserable. The objective is to build a life that combines freedom, security, opportunity, and enjoyment. Remember, money is a tool. The purpose of the tool is to improve life, but tools work best when used intentionally. This leads us to a powerful wealth forge principle. Every dollar has a job. Some dollars are assigned the job of paying bills. Others are assigned the job of creating experiences. Some dollars are assigned the job of protecting the future, while some are assigned the job of generating even more dollars. The problem is not that people spend money. The problem is that many dollars never receive clear instructions. They drift, disappear, and they leak away through impulse, convenience, and habit. Meanwhile, the people building wealth tend to give every dollar a purpose. Before money arrives, they know where it is going. Before opportunities appear, they have a plan. Before temptation arrives, they have priorities. And because they have direction, their dollars begin producing different outcomes. The dollar itself is not special. The direction is. Two people can earn the exact same income. One struggles financially for decades. The other builds significant wealth. The difference often comes down to how each dollar was directed, not how much was earned, but how much was intentionally deployed. And this reveals an important truth. Wealth is not merely a math problem. It is a behavior problem, a decision problem, and a discipline problem. The financial habits repeated over years create the outcomes people experience later in life. That may sound intimidating, but it should actually be encouraging, because behavior can change. Habits, knowledge, and direction can all be changed. And when direction changes, financial outcomes begin to change as well. The person who learns to direct $1 wisely develops the ability to direct 10, then 100, then 1,000, and then much more. Financial mastery begins at the smallest level. Because if a person cannot direct $1 intentionally, larger amounts rarely solve the problem. They simply magnify it. The good news is that every dollar offers a new opportunity, a new decision, a new chance to move closer to the life you want to build. And perhaps that is the greatest power hidden inside a dollar. Not its purchasing power, not its face value, not the number printed on it. Its potential. The potential to create something larger than itself. The potential to become an asset. The potential to create freedom. The potential to build opportunities that do not yet exist. Because once a dollar begins working, something remarkable happens. Time joins the equation. And when money and time begin working together, ordinary dollars can achieve extraordinary things. That is where we are headed next. Because understanding a dollar's potential is one thing, but learning how to multiply that potential is another. In the next chapter, we will explore one of the most powerful forces in wealth creation: compounding. The process that allows small amounts to become large amounts. The force that turns patience into profit. The reason a single dollar can eventually become far more valuable than most people imagine. Because every dollar contains potential. But potential alone is not enough. Potential must be grown. Chapter 4. How to grow a dollar, the force that turns small into significant. If there is one lesson that separates people who build wealth from those who struggle to keep pace, it is this. Wealth is rarely created through a single event. It is usually created through a process of consistent decisions, consistent actions, consistent investments, and consistent growth. Most people dramatically overestimate what they can accomplish in a year. At the same time, they dramatically underestimate what they can accomplish in a decade. That misunderstanding costs them dearly, because wealth is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary moments repeated over long periods of time. And at the center of that process lies one of the most powerful forces in finance. Compounding. Albert Einstein is often credited with calling compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said it or not is less important than the truth behind the statement. Compounding is extraordinary because it allows growth to build upon previous growth. Imagine rolling a snowball down a hill. At first, it seems insignificant. The snowball is small. The growth appears slow. The progress is difficult to notice. But as the snowball gathers more snow, something changes. Growth begins accelerating. The snowball becomes larger. It collects more snow, which makes it larger still. The process feeds itself. That is compounding. And it applies to much more than money. Skills, relationships, knowledge, businesses, reputation, health, and wealth all compound. The challenge is that compounding often feels invisible in the beginning. Human beings are naturally drawn toward immediate results. We want fast progress, fast rewards, and fast outcomes. Compounding asks for something different: patience, discipline, and consistency. The willingness to continue planting seeds long before the harvest appears. And that is where many people quit. They stop because they cannot yet see the results. But the people who build meaningful wealth understand something important. The most powerful years of growth often happen after years of preparation. The greatest benefits often arrive later. This is why the journey of wealth building is not about finding a shortcut. It is about finding a system that allows dollars to grow consistently over time. So how does a dollar actually grow? There are many paths, but nearly all wealth-building vehicles fall into 5 major categories: businesses, investments, real estate, skills, and technology. Let's begin with businesses. A business is one of the most powerful wealth-building tools ever created. Why? Because a business creates value. It solves problems. It serves customers. It generates revenue, and ideally, it produces profits. A successful business allows a dollar to multiply because it creates something greater than the cost required to produce it. A carpenter builds a table. A software company develops a product. A consultant solves a problem. A contractor completes a project. Value is created. And because value is created, money flows. Many of the world's wealthiest individuals built businesses because businesses have virtually unlimited upside. There is no ceiling on the value that can be created. A local business can serve hundreds. A regional business can serve thousands, while a digital business can serve millions. And today's technology makes that scalability more accessible than ever. A person with a laptop, internet connection, and valuable skills can reach customers across the world. That opportunity barely existed a generation ago. Then there are investments. When you invest in productive companies, you become an owner, even if ownership is small. You participate in the growth, the innovation, and you participate in the overall productivity. The stock market is often misunderstood. Many people view it as gambling. Others view it as speculation. But at its core, investing is ownership. You are purchasing a piece of a business, and if that business grows over time, your ownership becomes more valuable. The remarkable thing about investing is that it allows ordinary people to participate in extraordinary enterprises. A teacher, a mechanic, a nurse, an electrician, or a salesperson. Any of them can become partial owners of some of the most productive companies on earth. And over time, that ownership can compound. Then there is real estate. For generations, real estate has been one of the most common paths toward wealth. Part of the appeal is simple. People need places to live, and businesses need places to operate. Property can provide income, appreciate in value, create leverage, and property can serve as a hedge against inflation. Of course, real estate is not guaranteed. No investment is. Markets fluctuate, conditions change, and mistakes happen. But productive real estate remains one of the most widely used wealth-building vehicles in the world. Yet there is another investment that often produces higher returns than any stock, business, or property. That is skills. This surprises many people. But think about it. Imagine investing $1,000 into learning a valuable skill. Sales, marketing, negotiation, leadership, artificial intelligence, copywriting, construction, software development, project management, or even public speaking. Suppose that skill increases your income by $10,000 per year. What kind of investment return is that? Extraordinary. Skills are unique because they cannot easily be taken away. Markets can fall, businesses can fail, and properties can decline. But valuable skills travel with you. They influence every future opportunity, every future job, business, and investment. In today's economy, skills are one of the most powerful assets a person can own. And in the age of artificial intelligence, that reality becomes drastically more important. The people who learn fastest often advance fastest. Technology is transforming industries at an incredible pace. Some jobs will change dramatically. Some will even disappear. New opportunities will emerge. Entire categories of business will be created. The individuals who embrace learning will have a tremendous advantage. This brings us to the fifth wealth multiplier. Technology. Never before has so much leverage been available to so many people. A single person can create content for millions. Launch an online business. Automate repetitive tasks. Analyze markets. Build systems. And reach customers globally. And increasingly, artificial intelligence can amplify human productivity. The question is no longer whether technology will reshape wealth creation. It already has. The question is whether individuals will learn to use these tools effectively. Technology does not replace wisdom. It amplifies it. Technology does not replace effort. It multiplies it. Technology does not eliminate opportunity. It expands it. And those who learn to combine technology with valuable skills create enormous leverage. Now let's return to the dollar itself. Imagine two individuals. Both earn the same income. Both work equally hard. Both face similar economic conditions. One spends nearly everything earned. The other consistently directs a portion toward growth, month after month, year after year. At first, the difference appears small, almost invisible, but compounding rarely announces itself early. It whispers. Then it grows louder. A few years later, the gap widens. A decade later, the gap becomes significant. 2 decades later, the outcomes may look entirely different. Not because one person got lucky, not because one person was smarter, but because one person consistently allowed dollars to grow. This is one of the most encouraging truths in personal finance. You do not need perfection. You need consistency. You do not need massive amounts of money. You need a process. You do not need to predict the future. You need to participate in growth. Small actions repeated consistently often outperform occasional bursts of motivation. A dollar invested consistently can outperform periods of enthusiasm followed by years of inactivity. The goal is not intensity. The goal is sustainability. This is why wealthy individuals often think in decades rather than days. They understand that time is an investment partner. Every year provides additional opportunity for growth. Every year provides additional opportunity for compounding. Every year provides another chance for money to work. And eventually, something remarkable happens. The dollars begin producing more than the individual contributes. Growth begins generating growth. Assets begin generating assets. Investments begin generating investments. This is when momentum appears. And momentum changes everything. Because once money begins working effectively, wealth creation becomes less dependent on effort alone. The dollars themselves become contributors. The seeds begin producing fruit. And that is ultimately the objective. Not to work endlessly for money, but to gradually build systems where money begins working alongside you. This is the transition from labor-driven income to asset-driven income. From effort alone to ownership, from survival to growth. And that transition changes lives. But before a dollar can grow effectively, it must first be controlled. Because growth without control often disappears. Income without control often vanishes. Opportunity without control often becomes waste. The truth is that many people do not have an income problem. They have a control problem. And that is where our journey takes us next. Because growing a dollar is powerful, but controlling a dollar is essential. In the next chapter, we will explore one of the most overlooked skills in wealth building: how to control a dollar, how to direct it intentionally, how to prevent financial leakage, and how to build a system that ensures every dollar serves a purpose. Because before money can become a powerful servant, it must first learn who is in charge. Chapter 5: How to Control a Dollar. The skill that comes before wealth. Imagine filling a bucket with water. Now imagine that same bucket has 10 holes drilled into the bottom. No matter how much water you pour into it, the bucket never fills. The natural response is to pour faster, add more water, work harder, or increase the flow. But the real problem isn't how much water is entering the bucket. The real problem is how much is leaking out. For millions of people, money works the same way. They believe their biggest financial challenge is income. And sometimes it is. But often, the deeper challenge is control. Money comes in and money goes out, yet very little remains. Raises, along with bonuses, tax refunds, and extra income, all seem to just disappear. And over time, people begin asking a frustrating question: where did it all go? That question sits at the center of financial control. Because before a dollar can grow, it must first be directed. Before money can become an asset, it must stop behaving like a runaway train. And before wealth can be built, financial leakage must be understood. This chapter is not about deprivation. It is not about clipping coupons or eliminating every luxury. It is not about living a smaller life. It is about something much more important: intentionality. The ability to decide where your money goes, before someone else decides for you. Because whether you realize it or not, there are thousands of people competing for your dollars every single day. Advertisers, streaming services, retailers, social media platforms, subscription companies, lenders, and credit card companies all want your dollar. Entire industries exist for one purpose: capturing your attention long enough to capture your money, and they are exceptionally good at it. The average person is exposed to thousands of marketing messages every day. Some are obvious, many are subtle. A promotion appears. An influencer recommends a product. A limited time offer creates urgency. A new model promises improvement. A social media post creates comparison. Without realizing it, people begin spending based on emotion rather than intention. This is one reason financial control has become harder in the modern world. The economy has become frictionless. A few decades ago, spending required effort. Today, spending requires a thumb. One click, a tap, or one swipe. Convenience has made life easier. But it has also made discipline more important, because money moves faster than ever before. And dollars that move quickly without direction often disappear. The first principle of control is simple: awareness. You cannot control what you do not measure. Imagine a business owner who never tracks revenue, never reviews expenses, never monitors cash flow. How long would that business survive? Probably not very long. Yet many people manage their personal finances exactly that way. Money enters the account and then exits just as fast. No tracking, no review, no system, and no awareness. Then they wonder why progress feels slow. The truth is that awareness creates control. The moment you know where your money is going, you gain influence over where it goes next. This is why wealthy individuals often monitor finances regularly, not because they are obsessed with money, because they understand that attention creates improvement. Remember this important sentence: money flows where attention goes. If you ignore your finances, they often drift. If you monitor your finances, they often improve. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood concepts in personal finance: budgeting. The word itself creates resistance. People hear budget and imagine restriction, scarcity, limitations, or punishment. But that isn't what a budget actually is. A budget is simply a deployment plan. Think about a military commander. Before resources are deployed, a strategy is created. Every resource has an assignment. Every asset has a purpose. Every action supports an objective. Money works the same way. A budget is simply telling your dollars where to go before they leave. That's all. It is not a prison. It is a blueprint. The wealthy do not necessarily budget because they lack money. They budget because they value direction. Direction creates progress, and progress compounds. Now let's talk about a concept called lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is one of the greatest enemies of wealth. It happens when spending rises at the same pace as income. You receive a promotion and spending increases. You're given a raise and your spending increases again. You close out a successful year and yet again, spending increases. The result is that income grows while wealth remains stagnant. The person feels successful. But financially, little has changed. The challenge is that lifestyle inflation feels natural. Human beings adapt quickly. What once felt luxurious soon feels normal. What once felt exciting soon becomes expected. The bigger house, the nicer vehicle, and the upgraded lifestyle all begin to feel ordinary. And before long, the new standard becomes the minimum expectation. This cycle can continue indefinitely. No matter how much income increases, how many opportunities appear, or how much potential exists. Control is what interrupts the cycle. Control allows a person to capture part of each increase rather than spending all of it. And over time, those captured dollars become investments, assets, businesses, properties, opportunities, and future freedom. This is one of the reasons wealthy people often appear surprisingly disciplined. They understand that every additional dollar carries options, and options are valuable. Now let's discuss automation. One of the greatest financial advantages available today is the ability to automate good decisions. Human beings are imperfect. Motivations change. Disciplines fluctuate. Life gets busy, and good intentions are easily forgotten. Automation solves this problem. Imagine a person who invests automatically every month. The investment happens whether motivation exists or not, whether the market feels exciting or drab, and whether life becomes hectic or peaceful. The system continues operating. This is powerful because systems often outperform willpower. Successful people build systems that make good decisions easier. They reduce friction, they simplify execution, and they create habits that happen automatically. The less energy required to make good decisions, the more likely those decisions become. This applies to saving, investing, debt reduction, business growth, and nearly every area of financial life. Control becomes easier when systems are doing part of the work. But control also requires understanding the difference between wants and priorities. This distinction matters because financial success is not about saying no to everything. It is about saying yes to the right things. Every dollar spent is a vote. A vote for a particular future, particular outcome, or for a particular priority. The question becomes, what future are your dollars voting for? Are they building assets, creating security, developing skills, reducing stress, increasing freedom? Or are they simply creating temporary gratification? Neither outcome is inherently right or wrong. The important thing is alignment. Your spending should reflect your values. Your financial decisions should support your goals. Your dollars should move in the direction you want your life to move. This is where control becomes empowering rather than restrictive. Because when dollars align with purpose, financial confidence grows, stress decreases, clarity increases, momentum develops, and that momentum creates opportunities. Now let's discuss something that quietly destroys financial control. Small leaks. Most financial damage does not arrive dramatically. It arrives quietly. A subscription here, an unnecessary fee there. Interest payments, impulse purchases, convenience spending, unused memberships, and recurring charges. None seem significant on their own, but together they create substantial leakage. Imagine a small hole in a boat. The hole appears harmless. A little water enters. Nothing dramatic happens immediately. But given enough time, the outcome becomes obvious. Money works the same way. Small leaks accumulate, but small improvements and small decisions compound. The people who build wealth understand this principle. They know that control is not achieved through one giant decision. It is achieved through thousands of small decisions made consistently. And eventually, those decisions create a very different financial reality. This brings us to one of the most important Wealth Forge principles. Control precedes growth. Many people reverse the order. They believe more income will solve everything. But income without control often disappears. Opportunities, windfalls, and growth without control often disappear too. Control creates the foundation, and growth builds upon it. Without the foundation, the structure remains unstable. With the foundation, everything becomes possible. And perhaps this is the most encouraging part of the entire chapter. Financial control does not require extraordinary intelligence, perfect timing, or even a six-figure income. It requires awareness, intention, and consistency. These are skills available to anyone willing to develop them. Every person can improve financial control, create better systems, and become more intentional. And every improvement creates momentum. An individual who learns to control $1 can eventually control 1,000. And one who learns to control 1,000 can eventually control much more. The principles remain the same, because money management is not really about money. It is about decision-making, and better decisions create better outcomes. Now we have reached an important milestone in our journey. We understand where a dollar comes from and the forces acting upon it. We also understand a dollar's potential, how it grows, and we understand how it is controlled. But there is still a challenge ahead. Because earning and growing money is difficult, yet in many ways, keeping money can be even harder. History is filled with people who earned fortunes and lost them. Businesses that generated millions and disappeared. Athletes, entertainers, entrepreneurs, and investors who accumulated wealth only to watch it vanish. Why? Because wealth that is not protected remains vulnerable. And that is where we turn next. In the next chapter, we will explore how to keep a dollar, how to defend it from inflation, taxes, debt, risk, and poor decisions, and the countless forces that attempt to separate people from the wealth they have worked so hard to build. Because creating wealth is only half the battle. Keeping it is where true financial discipline is revealed. Chapter 6. How to keep a dollar. Protecting what you build. Imagine spending 20 years building a house. You pour the foundation, frame the walls, install the roof, and finish every room. You've invested your time, your energy, your resources, and your attention. And when the house is finally complete, you simply leave the front door open. No locks, no protection, no maintenance, and no plan. How long do you think that house would remain in good condition? Probably not very long. Yet this is exactly how many people approach wealth. They work hard to earn and grow money, but they spend very little time learning how to protect it. As a result, dollars slowly disappear. Not all at once, not through some dramatic event, but through countless small forces that quietly erode financial progress over time. And that is what this chapter is about. Not making money or growing money, but protecting money. Because if wealth is a garden, protection is the fence around it. Without the fence, growth remains vulnerable. Without protection, accumulation often becomes temporary. And without discipline, even large fortunes can disappear. History is full of examples. Professional athletes who earned millions and retired broke. Lottery winners who received life-changing wealth and lost it within a few years. Business owners who built successful companies but failed to protect their gains. The lesson is simple. Making money and keeping money are different skills. Both matter, and both must be learned. Let's begin with one of the most powerful threats to wealth: inflation. We discussed inflation in an earlier chapter, but now we need to examine it from a different perspective. Inflation is not simply an economic statistic. It is a wealth preservation challenge. Every year, inflation quietly attempts to reduce the purchasing power of your savings. It doesn't ask permission, and it doesn't announce itself loudly. It simply works in the background. Slowly, consistently, and relentlessly. This is why wealthy individuals rarely keep all of their money sitting idle. They understand that cash is important. Cash creates flexibility, opportunity, and security. But too much idle cash can slowly lose purchasing power over time. The goal is balance. Enough liquidity to handle life's challenges, enough productive assets to fight inflation. This is one reason ownership matters so much. Businesses can adjust prices, real estate can appreciate, and investments can grow. Productive assets have the potential to adapt to changing economic conditions. Cash preserves, but assets often protect. The strongest financial positions usually incorporate both. Now let's discuss another force that quietly attacks wealth: taxes. Taxes are a reality of modern life. Every productive economy relies upon them. But successful wealth builders understand something important. Taxes are not simply expenses. They are variables that can be managed intelligently. The goal is not avoidance. The goal is understanding. Understanding retirement accounts, business deductions, investment strategies, legal structures, and understanding long-term planning. The financially educated often keep more of what they earn because they understand the rules of the game. The uninformed frequently pay more than necessary. Knowledge creates efficiency, and efficiency creates retained wealth. This is why financial education continues generating returns long after the initial learning takes place. Every dollar saved through intelligent planning becomes another dollar available for future growth. Now let's turn our attention to debt. Debt can be a useful tool. We discussed that earlier. But debt can also become one of the largest threats to wealth preservation, particularly high-interest debt. Imagine trying to fill a swimming pool while someone continuously drains water from the other end. That is what high-interest debt often feels like. Progress becomes difficult, momentum slows, and energy is consumed. Future income becomes committed before it is earned. Credit card debt is especially dangerous because it combines convenience with high costs. Many people focus on monthly payments rather than total cost. But wealth builders think differently. They ask, how much is this debt actually costing me? How much future opportunity is being sacrificed? How many future dollars have already been assigned away? Because every interest payment represents money that can no longer be invested elsewhere. This is why reducing destructive debt often creates an immediate financial return. Not because debt is evil, but because unnecessary financial friction slows progress. And progress matters. Now let's discuss something people rarely think about until it is too late: risk. Life is unpredictable. Markets fluctuate. Businesses encounter challenges. Health events occur. Accidents happen. Economic conditions change. And unexpected situations emerge. The goal is not to live in fear. The goal is to prepare intelligently. This is where emergency funds, insurance, diversification, and contingency planning become powerful. Think of these tools as financial shock absorbers. A vehicle without shock absorbers can still move down the road. But every bump creates disruption, and every obstacle creates stress. Shock absorbers create stability. Financial shock absorbers do the same thing. They reduce damage when unexpected events occur. They buy time and preserve options. And options are often the difference between a setback and a catastrophe. One of the greatest financial advantages a person can possess is resilience. The ability to absorb challenges without losing momentum. Resilience protects wealth. Now let's examine a less obvious threat: success itself. This may sound strange, but success often introduces new risks. As income grows, complexity grows. As assets grow, responsibility grows. As opportunities increase, decisions increase. And with more decisions comes more room for mistakes. This is why some individuals become less disciplined as their income rises. They assume higher earnings automatically create wealth. But income alone does not create financial security. Along with protection, discipline, systems, and awareness, all matter. The same principles that helped someone build wealth often become even more important after wealth exists, because larger numbers magnify both good decisions and bad decisions. This brings us to a concept called wealth leakage. Wealth leakage is the gradual loss of money through unnoticed inefficiencies, and it happens everywhere. Subscription services, bank fees, investment fees, unnecessary interest payments, unused memberships, impulse purchases, poor tax planning, and bad financial habits. None appear significant individually. Collectively, they become enormous. Imagine carrying a bucket across a field. A tiny hole exists in the bottom. The leak seems insignificant. But after miles of walking, much of the water is gone. This is how wealth leakage operates. Slowly, quietly, and almost invisibly. The solution is periodic review. Successful individuals regularly inspect their financial lives, not because they are obsessed with money, because they understand that attention creates improvement. What gets measured improves, but what gets ignored often deteriorates. And perhaps nowhere is this more true than in personal finance. Now let's talk about one of the most important wealth protection strategies available today: multiple income streams. Many people rely entirely on a single source of income. One job, one customer, one business, and one revenue stream. There is nothing inherently wrong with that. But concentration creates vulnerability. When all income depends upon one source, disruption becomes more dangerous. Diversification creates resilience. Additional income streams can come from many places, such as investments, rental properties, side businesses, royalties, digital products, consulting, or content creation. The objective is not complexity for the sake of complexity. The objective is stability, because financial stability creates confidence, and confidence creates opportunity. Then there is another modern challenge that previous generations rarely faced: digital risk. Today's economy is increasingly digital. Bank accounts, investment accounts, business systems, online payments, and all personal information. Everything is connected. And because everything is connected, protection becomes essential. Strong passwords, secure systems, identity protection, and cybersecurity awareness. These may not sound like wealth-building topics, but in the modern world, they absolutely are. Protecting assets means protecting access. The digital economy rewards convenience, but convenience must be balanced with security. Now let's step back and examine the larger picture. Most people focus heavily on earning. Fewer focus on growing, and even fewer focus on protecting. Yet the wealthiest individuals often spend significant energy on preservation, not because they fear loss, but because they understand something important. Every protected dollar is a dollar that can continue working. Every preserved asset remains available for future growth. Every avoided mistake creates additional opportunity. Protection is not defensive. Protection is strategic. It is what allows growth to continue uninterrupted. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of this chapter. Financial success is not a single event. It is a process of earning, growing, controlling, and protecting. Each step supports the others. Each step strengthens the foundation. Each step creates additional opportunities. And eventually something powerful happens. You stop feeling like money controls your future and you begin feeling like you are in control of your future. Not because risk disappears, not because challenges vanish, but because preparation creates confidence, and confidence changes the way people move through the world. Now we stand near the end of our journey through the architecture of a dollar. We understand where money comes from. We understand the forces acting upon it. We understand how to grow it, control it, and protect it. Only one final question remains. What is the highest use of a dollar? What should a dollar ultimately do? Should it simply sit? Should it simply grow? Or is there a larger purpose? Because the truly wealthy do not merely accumulate money. They deploy money. They direct capital intentionally. They use dollars to build businesses, create opportunities, fund innovation, solve problems, serve communities, and ultimately create lasting impact. In the next and final chapter, we will explore the ultimate purpose of money. How to deploy a dollar like the wealthy. How to think like an allocator rather than a spender. And how to transform money from a tool of survival into a tool of freedom, influence, and opportunity. Because protecting a dollar is important, but directing a dollar toward its highest purpose is where financial mastery truly begins. Chapter 7. How to deploy a dollar like the wealthy, turning money into freedom, opportunity, and impact. We have come a long way in our journey through the architecture of a dollar. We began by understanding where money comes from. We explored the invisible forces that shape it. We uncovered the potential hidden inside every dollar. We learned how dollars grow, how they are controlled, and how they are protected. Now we arrive at the final question. What is the highest use of a dollar? Most people spend their entire lives earning money. Some learn how to save it. Others learn how to invest it. A smaller group learns how to protect it. But the individuals who create lasting wealth understand something deeper. Money is not meant to sit. It is meant to move. That is why money is often referred to as currency. Money is meant to be deployed. The word deploy is important because it suggests intention, purpose, strategy, and direction. A soldier is deployed with a mission. Resources are deployed toward an objective. Capital is deployed to create an outcome. The wealthy rarely ask, "What can I buy?" Instead, they often ask, "What can this dollar do?" That simple shift changes everything. Because the moment a dollar becomes a tool rather than a possession, wealth begins to operate differently. Imagine giving two people $100,000. The first person immediately begins making purchases. A newer vehicle, a bigger television, luxury items, and expensive experiences. Within a short period of time, much of the money is gone. The second person asks a different question. How can this money create more money? How can this money create opportunities? How can this money create freedom? The dollars are the same. The difference lies in deployment. And deployment is where financial mastery lives. Let's begin with a powerful truth. The wealthiest people in the world are often not simply creators. They are allocators. An allocator is someone who directs resources toward their highest and best use. Warren Buffett is often described as one of the greatest capital allocators in history. He didn't build every business he invested in, nor did he manufacture every product. He allocated capital and directed dollars toward productive opportunities. And over time, those decisions compounded into extraordinary results. This principle applies at every level. You do not need billions of dollars to think like an allocator. You can think like one with $1,000, $100, or even just $10. The habit begins long before the wealth arrives. Because allocation is a mindset. Every dollar becomes a question. Where can this create the greatest return? Sometimes the return is financial. Sometimes it is educational. Sometimes it is personal. And sometimes it is relational. But intentional deployment always seeks a return. Let's talk about the highest return investment many people will ever make: themselves. Imagine investing in a skill that increases your income for the next 20 years. Imagine learning negotiation, sales, leadership, marketing, artificial intelligence, communication, or problem solving. These skills often generate returns that far exceed traditional investments. The challenge is that many people view education as an expense, but the wealthy often view education as an asset. They understand that skills create opportunities, and opportunities create income, which creates capital, which creates investment opportunities. Everything begins to connect. The dollar invested in knowledge often becomes one of the most productive dollars ever deployed. Now, let's expand the conversation, because deployment is not strictly limited to skills. Capital can be deployed into businesses, real estate, investments, intellectual property, systems, and into technology. The key question remains the same. What future outcome is this dollar creating? The modern economy offers opportunities previous generations could barely imagine. A single individual can create content viewed by millions, launch a digital product, build an online business, reach global customers, create software, publish books, develop courses, or build communities, and generate income streams from virtually anywhere. Technology has dramatically increased the potential productivity of every dollar. A dollar invested wisely today can access tools and opportunities that once required large organizations and significant capital. This is one reason we are living through one of the most exciting periods in economic history. Yes, there are challenges. Inflation, competition, and economic uncertainty all exist. But opportunity exists as well. And opportunity has never been more accessible. The barrier to entry has fallen. Information, education, and technology are available everywhere. The tools exist. The question is whether people will use them intentionally. Now let's discuss something that separates the wealthy from everyone else. Time horizon. Most people think in days or weeks. Some tend to think in months, and even fewer think in years. But wealth builders often think in decades. This difference matters enormously. Imagine planting an oak tree. You wouldn't expect shade tomorrow. You understand that growth requires time. You understand that the benefits arrive later. Wealth operates the same way. The wealthy often deploy dollars into opportunities that may take years to fully mature. Businesses, investments, relationships, skills, and systems. These assets all require patience, but that patience is rewarded. The person focused only on immediate gratification often misses long-term opportunity. The person focused on long-term opportunity often experiences extraordinary results. This is one reason deployment is so important. Deployment forces you to think beyond today, this week, or this month. It forces you to think about future outcomes, future possibilities, and future freedom. And that brings us to an important realization. The ultimate purpose of money is not accumulation. The ultimate purpose of money is freedom. Freedom of time, choice, and movement. Freedom to pursue meaningful work, to support family, contribute, create, and to serve. Many people mistakenly believe wealth is about possessions, but wealth is often better measured by options. How many options does your financial life create? How much control do you have over your time? How resilient are you when challenges appear? How prepared are you for opportunities? These are the questions that matter. Because wealth is not really about dollars. It is about what dollars make possible. And perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in impact. The most fulfilled, wealthy individuals rarely stop at accumulation. They begin asking larger questions. How can I help? How can I contribute? How can I build something that lasts? How can I create value for others? Money is a powerful amplifier. It amplifies character, intention, opportunities, and when directed wisely, it amplifies impact. Businesses create jobs, investments fund innovation, philanthropy supports causes, entrepreneurs solve problems, builders create communities, creators educate audiences, and leaders inspire growth. Dollars become tools for improving the world around us. This is where money reaches its highest purpose. Not merely consumption or accumulation, but contribution. The ability to create outcomes larger than yourself, the ability to improve lives beyond your own, and the ability to leave something better than you found it. Now let's step back and view the entire architecture. A dollar is born through trust and exchange. It enters a world shaped by invisible forces. It contains hidden potential. It can be grown, controlled, protected, and ultimately, it can be deployed. Each stage matters. Each stage builds upon the one before it. Miss one stage, and the structure weakens. Master all stages, and the structure strengthens. This is why wealth is not an event. It is a system, a process, and a framework. A series of decisions repeated over time. And the good news is that every person listening to this audiobook can begin immediately. You do not need millions of dollars, perfect timing, or ideal circumstances. You need awareness, intention, consistency, willingness to learn, and most importantly, you need to recognize the power already passing through your hands every day. Because every dollar matters. Not because of its size, but because of its direction. $1 has the potential to become 10. 10 can become 100. 100 can grow to 1,000. And 1,000 can be strategically grown to 10,000. The principle never changes. The dollar simply follows the instructions it receives. That is the lesson of the Wealth Forge. Every dollar has a job. Every dollar has potential. And every dollar has a purpose. The question is whether that purpose is chosen intentionally, because wealth is not built by the dollars you earn. Wealth is built by the dollars you understand. The person who understands money gains more than financial knowledge. They gain perspective, clarity, confidence, and ultimately, control. Control over their choices, control over their opportunities, and control over their future. And that is the true architecture of a dollar. Not just paper, not just ink, not numbers on a screen, but a tool. A tool capable of building security, creating freedom, generating opportunity, and forging wealth if directed wisely, protected carefully, grown consistently, and if deployed with purpose. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the architecture of a dollar. And remember this final Wealth Forge principle. Money is not the destination. Money is the tool. The destination is the life you build with it. Conclusion. Becoming the architect, the Wealth Forge, final message. Take a moment and think about where you were when this journey began. At the start of this audiobook, we asked a simple question. What is a dollar? Not what can it buy, not how much of it do you have, and not how quickly can you spend it. But what is it really? Now you know the answer. A dollar is not simply currency. A dollar is trust, stored labor, purchasing power, opportunity, potential energy waiting for direction, and most importantly, a dollar is a tool. The quality of your financial future depends largely on how that tool is used. Throughout this audiobook, we explored the complete architecture of a dollar. We learned how money evolved from barter into one of the most powerful systems ever created. We learned that every dollar enters a world shaped by inflation, interest rates, technology, government policy, and human behavior. We discovered that every dollar contains hidden potential, the potential to be spent, saved, invested, and leveraged. We learned that growth does not happen by accident. It happens through consistency, through ownership, skills, investments, and patience. We learned that control comes before growth, that awareness creates power, that money flows where attention goes. We learned that protecting wealth is just as important as building it. And finally, we discovered that the highest purpose of a dollar is deployment, the intentional direction of resources toward freedom, opportunity, and impact. Taken together, these ideas form something much larger than financial advice. They form a framework, a blueprint, a system for thinking differently about money. Because the truth is that wealth is rarely built through luck. It is rarely built through perfect timing. And it is almost never built through a single decision. Wealth is built through understanding, discipline, repeated actions, and through thousands of small choices that compound over time. That is the real secret. Not a stock tip, a business trend, or a magic formula, but understanding how money works, and then putting that understanding into action. Because knowledge alone does not create change. Application creates the change. And that brings us to an important question. What happens next? You've listened to the concepts and learned the principles. You've seen how the architecture of a dollar operates in the economy. But have you seen how it operates in your life? That is where real transformation begins. Not when you just understand the framework, but when you apply that framework into your own life. When you examine your own habits, your personal cash flow, opportunities available to you or ones you can create, your personal challenges, and your own financial future. That is exactly why we created the companion workbook for the architecture of a dollar. This isn't just another worksheet. It is a practical guide designed to help you map the architecture of money inside your own life. Inside the workbook, you'll identify where your dollars are currently going. You'll uncover hidden financial leaks. You'll evaluate your relationship with spending, saving, investing, and ownership. You'll assess the forces currently affecting your financial future. You'll create your own wealth-building blueprint. And perhaps most importantly, you'll begin assigning every dollar a purpose. Because understanding money intellectually is valuable, but understanding how money is behaving in your own life is transformational. The workbook turns concepts into action, theory into implementation, and knowledge into results. As you work through it, you'll begin seeing patterns that may have been invisible before. You'll begin asking better questions, begin making more intentional decisions, and you'll begin taking ownership of your financial future in a completely new way. Remember, financial freedom does not arrive the day you earn a certain amount of money. Financial freedom begins the moment you start directing your money intentionally. That moment can happen today, not someday, not after a raise, not after a promotion, not after the economy improves. Today. Because every dollar that enters your life from this point forward presents a choice. A choice between reaction and intention. A choice between consumption and ownership. A choice between drifting and directing. and the choice between surviving and building. The good news is that you don't need to be perfect. You don't need to have everything figured out, nor do you need a massive income. You don't even need the ideal circumstances. You simply need to start. One decision, one habit, and $1 at a time. That is how wealth is built. And that is why the architecture of a dollar matters so much. Because once you understand the architecture, you begin seeing opportunities everywhere. You begin seeing how wealth is created, how it is preserved, how it can be multiplied, and how wealth is ultimately used to create a better life. Not just for yourself, but for your family, your community, and future generations. The greatest gift of financial literacy is not money. It is awareness. Awareness creates confidence. Confidence creates action. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates results. And results create freedom. So as we conclude this audiobook, I want to leave you with one final thought. Every dollar that enters your life carries a question. A simple question. What do you want me to become? A purchase, an investment, an opportunity, a lesson, a source of freedom, or a tool for impact? The dollar doesn't decide. You do. And that is the true power of wealth. Not the money itself, but the ability to direct it, to shape it, to deploy it, and to use it intentionally in service of a meaningful life. Thank you for joining us for this edition of The Wealth Forge. If this audiobook has challenged your thinking, inspired new ideas, or helped you see money differently, please give us a follow and a like, and continue your journey by working through the architecture of a Dollar Companion workbook. Because understanding the blueprint is only the beginning. Building with it is where the transformation happens. And remember our final Wealth Forge principle. Every dollar has a job, every dollar has great potential, and every dollar has an ultimate purpose. The question is not whether money will shape your future, but whether you will become the architect. Until next time, keep building, learning, and keep forging wealth. $1 at a time.